I've done that the wrong way. Oh, it's been a long time since I did one of these. Welcome back to the Green and White podcast, brought to you by Argyle Life, and welcome to what might not be the next positive hour of your Wednesday or Thursday evening, even. That's what Wednesday night football does to you. As you can tell, I wasn't successful in the ballot to be on Question Time, so you've chosen right to watch this rather than a bunch of overpaid people talk about politics. So let's talk about some overpaid people who play football. Joining me this evening on tonight's episode, delighted to say, podcast regular Sam Down is with us. Sam, are you without going into too much detail, are you over last night?
Yeah, I guess not much of a choice at this point. Otherwise, I just make myself miserable all week. I think you just have to accept it, and anything else is a nice surprise,
Yeah, very true. And don't adjust your sets. This isn't a My Argyle Life, but we are delighted to have Woody from Bastille joining us this evening. Now, this is going to be something you're going to be getting quite used to in future months and years, Woody, isn't it? Podcasting. This is a whole new world for you, basically.
Yeah, thank you for the absolutely seamless plug there, a segue, if you will. I've got a new podcast with my good friend Piers Hewitt for the band Boxer Rebellion. He's a Southend fan, called Away Days with Woody and Piers, which, as you might imagine, is all about football away days. We've got 7 episodes out at the minute. It's every Tuesday. Had like Helen Chamberlain on, Chris Stark off of a certain football podcast that you may have heard of. We've got Fatboy Slim on next week as well. Yeah, whole host of guests. It's been fun. Basically, us lot just talking bollocks for best part of an hour. But yeah, it's been good fun so far.
Well, welcome to the world of the Green and White podcast. Before we get into the rundown of last night, let's just go through all the regular housekeeping. If you haven't liked, comment, subscribed, whatever it is you have to do to follow the podcast, then what have you been doing? All the links are placed lovely below Sam there. You can see all the different various platforms that we are on. On the right hand side, you can see the link to the Argyle Life shop, and do go on there. I think Aaron's got a couple of new lines of merchandise and he's always working on something, so do check that out. Woody, you were one of the 1,400 brave souls at the Den last night. Why don't you take us through the harrowing Wednesday in the capital?
Well, it wasn't just me; it was also me and my 9-year-old son. So yeah, we got back quite late last night. So he was in a frightfully good mood this morning, as I'm sure everyone else was. It was just very flat. You can see the sort of game plan. Obviously, try and keep the ball moving, pass it across the back a lot, as the fans were singing about as well. But I don't know. It just felt Millwall were just kind of a bit snappier in the tackle. I don't know why, because I mean, when we play at home, we seem to just be on fire, and like urgency, I guess is the word. But yeah, it all felt a bit passive. But then, all that being said, before everyone starts sort of crying Mayday and all that sort of stuff, and change everything, change the manager, change the board, we've not won at Millwall since 1963. I think I read this morning. So it's not like
Sam's
a regular.
the man who'll be able to confirm that one. It's a
I
shocker.
believe, but certainly a very long time. Yeah, it certainly began with 1960, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, probably pre World Cup. But yeah, it's one of those things. Millwall weren't great shakes, if we're being really honest as well. I mean, if you want to talk away days, as I often do, it was actually quite a good away experience. Like plenty of bars, plenty of good food, plenty of space. Because that compared to QPR, which was just like an absolute closet, basically trying to fit everyone in there, that wasn't great. But I'm not worried. Obviously, we've gone and beaten. I mean, it's typical Argyle, in it, where we go and beat Sunderland, we beat Blackburn, and then get rolled by Cardiff and Millwall. It's just kind of been the same as it ever was. Really, we'll always turn up against the big teams and then get rolled by the teams that we should be taking care of. So it's kind of business as usual, really.
I was going to say, throughout generations, nothing ever changes, does it? They build you up with hope that this group might be different from the last, and it's just the same cycle. Schumacher had the winning formula, but it's now apparent he had an unbelievable team in League One, that sort of bucked the trend of recent years. Sam, Woody mentions there that Millwall was snappier in tackles and things. I mean, this is all something we all had a gripe about on Saturday in South Wales was a lack of, whether you want to call it a lack of fight character, whatever you want to attribute it to. There would have been a large number of the 1,400 who were part of the 3,000 strong in Cardiff on Saturday. Everybody went there last night looking to see a reaction. We didn't get it, did we?
No, we did not. Was it better than Cardiff? Yes, it was. But that's like saying that being shot in the head is a bit preferable to being slowly tortured.
How low a bar are we setting?
I mean, yeah, it did clear the bar of being better than Cardiff, but that was an incredibly low bar, and that's probably the lowest bar available, being better than Cardiff. Although, actually, Sheffield Wednesday wasn't better than Cardiff, so maybe that's not the best example. But it did clear the very low bar of being an improvement on the previous performance. I would agree. Unfortunately, that is about the only bar it did clear. It was a very poor performance again. Once again, like at Cardiff, I think the first 15 minutes were the best part of the game, as they were at Cardiff. We started brightly. Yesterday showed a lot of intent, got up at them fairly well. We didn't really create an opening chance, like to the same extent as the Obafemi one on Saturday. But nonetheless, first 10, 12 minutes or so, I think we were definitely the better of the two teams. Then Millwall score, bit of a cock up all round. Obviously, Mumba will take most of the flack for giving the ball away the way he did. He had a couple of chances to clear it, and he didn't. Unfortunately, you've got to look at the next phase as well. The lack of tracking back from midfield. I mean, look, I don't want to target him too much because I'm probably the second biggest fan of Adam Randall, not named Aaron Hocking, because we all know he's number one, but I'm probably the second biggest fan. But Randall, to be fair, he tracked back at about 2 miles an hour, didn't he? He wasn't tracking back. And I know he's not the quickest player in the world. I know he's not a natural sprinter, but he was a bit slow tracking back. I'm sure not through lack of effort. I'm sure maybe he just wasn't expecting it, a bit of a shock reaction, but he didn't get back quick enough. Left Gibson 2-on-1. Gibson kind of goes fly in that position. Such doesn't really cover, but when you're 2-on-1, then if Such comes out, you're then 3-on-2. That's always going to be difficult. So it's difficult from the minute that Mumba gave away the chance, and from the minute that we then didn't get midfield runners back quick enough to cover. So that was disappointing. I think there are, like I say, I don't want to pick on just one because I think there are quite a few individuals who could have done better with that goal. And then from that, then again, the heads just dropped a little bit. I mean, I don't think it was as bad a response as Cardiff, because I do think there were at least some occasions after going 1-0 down where we got the ball forward and got some touches on the box in the opposing penalty area. Still didn't really have a good chance. I mean, there was the Joe Edwards cross that Hardy headed sort of quite limply into the arms of Jensen. I think Ryan Hardy, as we know, has got a lot of strengths, but heading the ball isn't really one of them. I can't really count many headed goals he scored for us, to be honest. But that, to be fair, that was always going to be a tough chance. It was quite a way out from goal, and he had to get it perfectly in the air. So I'm not even sure that a natural header like Ennis or Cosgrove would have scored that. It wasn't a great opportunity. Second half was dreadful, really dreadful indeed. They just had all the control, and it's like Woody said. It was almost like there was no fight. And to repeat what I said in the post Cardiff podcast, I think there's going to be a lot of the same ground being repeated. We are such a Jekyll and Hyde team. How in the Blackburn home game, when they scored late on to make it 1-1, we were very angry that we felt there should have been a foul on Hardy, but we channeled that anger, we channeled that aggression and got at them, attacked, and got a late winning goal. Why, when we were angry, disappointed, whatever, about the penalty, maybe the penalty incident, there wasn't a penalty early on, why did we not channel that anger to play that same aggressive, forcing style of football? regarding that penalty incident, I don't know if Joe, you're going to ask about that specifically. Okay, hold fire then.
Well, we'll come to it now because we've got an hour to try and take apart every little forensic detail. So why don't we start within 20 seconds of the whistle being blown? My issue is I don't know whether you two lads have seen it back. I was back in Plymouth watching the game. My issue with it is it's been disallowed for the wrong reason, in my opinion. They've disallowed it for offside, when actually, if we're being honest, it should probably be disallowed because it's not actually a penalty.
Very short, yeah.
He's thrown himself to the floor, but the issue is the referee has given the penalty on what he believes to be contact. Surely to God, neither of those two officials involved in that conversation can be 100% sure that Callum Wright has played that ball, which he hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to annoy everyone because I'm the eternal optimist. Glass half full was like you get some of those go for you during the season and you don't in others. Again, it's probably why a lot of us are very glad that there's like no VAR in the Championship. It's like this is the sort of other side of that double-edged sword. Yeah, some will go for you, some won't. I wouldn't. I mean, I thought the ref had a pretty good game overall. So, I mean, everyone's human. I thought he was pretty consistent. There weren't any real howlers, as far as I was. Well, from what I could see anyway, from where I was sat. But I mean, if say for instance that pen is given and we score it, are we having the same conversation? Like right now, probably not. Or even if at the very end the ball drops to Freddie Azaka, I think it was like in a goalmouth scramble. If the ball drops for him and he puts it away, we shithouse a 1-1, and all of a sudden everyone's not quite as angry. It's like well, two kind of under par teams, 1-1 would have felt fair. I don't know. It's just it feels like the sort of finest of margins. I mean, I can see. I wouldn't say there was like a lack of fight as such. Like I think everyone was almost trying too hard. Like Morgan Whittaker a few times tried to find like that real killer pass, and it got cut out too many times. But probably kind of wanting it too much almost. I'd say that he was probably more guilty of that. But we didn't create much. That was the issue. I was sort of missing what I'd love for. I mean, obviously he's a bit old now, but a Lillian Nallis type, like a proper seasoned grizzled midfielder, grab the game by scruff of the neck, but also just like actually marshal the troops. We don't really have like a head case like centre back or centre mid on the pitch who would start banging heads together and screaming at them like a Darren Purser, Paul Wotton, a Coughlin, someone of that ilk. So yeah, I'd love us if we could get at some point in January, maybe like someone who's not quite cutting it in the Prem, but with experience, or just wants to find it like kind of like Andre Gray. Obviously, I think we're very much a sort of stepping stone club for him to get to a bigger place again, probably. But someone like that, I think, just to kind of galvanise the troops a little bit, because like it's also a very young team. Let's not forget, there's a lot of talent and potential, and sometimes you are going to get games where people just don't quite have it.
Yeah, I think that sort of player is basically like what Ipswich had last year in Sam Morsey, isn't it? It's that type of grab the game by the scruff of the neck. He's probably at the top of my list of people I'd most want taken out in footballing circles. But I suppose I shouldn't have too much bad blood. He's up there in the Premier League, and we're struggling as we are here. Sam, you talked about channeling the energy there. You also talk about the second half and just trying to break it down as we went along in the first half. I'm just going to crunch some numbers from the last two games because I mentioned that there were 3,200 in Cardiff. There was 1,400 there yesterday. The stats are obviously a little bit skewed from the Cardiff game because we played essentially an hour with 10 men through the active head loss from Sissoko. Before then, in the first half alone, we'd had 2 touches in Cardiff's box. One of them was the Obafemi shot. One of them was a header by Gibson right before half-time. In the whole of yesterday's game, we had 20 touches in Millwall's box from start to finish in nearly, 100 minutes of football, because there was a good couple of minutes added on at the end of the first half. That's not sustainable, is it? Like, I know you guys touched on the away form in the podcast on Saturday, but just going back over it, we're a really soft touch on the road, aren't we? I know historically Plymouth Argyle have always struggled, but at the moment, this is a little bit worrying, isn't it? In games really that are important to us. The West Brom and the Burnley game, as Woody says earlier, it's all well and good performing well against those teams. It's the bread and butter against the QPRs, the Cardiffs, the Millwalls that are going to be in and around you at the end of the season. So far, we're yielding 1 point and 1 goal from, well, a pot effort, really, that's bounced back off a ricochet.
Yeah, really concerning. And just to update the stats for those of you who listened to them in the post Cardiff pod, and to tell you the stats for those of you who weren't listening or who may have missed that, since we won 1-0 at Rotherham, beg your pardon, in the first away game of Neil Jewson's second caretaker spell, since then we have had 9 away games. Of that 9 away games, we have now won 0, drawn 1, lost 8, scored 1, which was Morgan Whittaker at QPR, conceded 19. So that's 9 away games where we've scored 1 goal in our last 9, conceded 19, and we've lost 8 out of the 9 and drawn the other. That's just absolutely diabolical. I don't care what anyone says about the budget's not very, competitive. We have to make do with the squad we've got. We should not be that bad on the road. That, to me, absolutely sends a psychological element. Looking at the results we've had at home at that time, we beat what was a good Hull side on the last game of last season. We beat a fantastic Leicester side who won the league last season. We obviously have beaten 3 in a row this year of Sunderland, Luton, and Burnley, of course, and Blackburn, of course. Yeah, and we've been absolutely dismally bad away from home. What is the difference? Because I think you've both put your finger on it to an extent. It's the lack of urgency. When we're at home, every second ball, every little percentage of a run is done to the absolute maximum to get the most you can out of it, force them back 5-10 yards. When we're away from home, yes, there are times where we do a bit better than others. There are times where we have some decent phase to play, but nowhere near that same level of urgency. I don't get it. I don't get is it the preparation? And I saw a few people in the comments saying, do they go up the night before? Yeah, they do. I know for a fact they do. They stay in hotels the night before. They don't go up on the day. Very rarely would they go up on the day. Only maybe somewhere really local like Bristol City would they go up. And even then, I think they'd probably stay.
I'm not even sure for Bristol City they'll travel up on the day. I think that'll probably be an overnight job.
Yeah, so it would only be if we had Exeter in the cup or something. We probably would go up on the day. No other team would we do that for. So it's really dreadful. Whatever's going on, is it lack of preparation? Is it a psychological thing? Do we need to get a sports scientist in? Comment from.
Does anyone know a good shrink? A sports shrink that can come in.
This week. Well, fair enough. They went up by train this week, but whether it's train or coach or plane, it doesn't seem to make any difference. We're pretty much just as bloody bad in all 3, to be honest. I do not get it at all. And I know this is a bit of a playing the sympathy card, but I've been to each and every one of those 9 games. And in fact, furthermore, I've been to each and every one of the 31 away games since I returned to the Championship, and which I've seen precisely 3 wins, 2 of which were under Ian Foster, believe it or not. So I don't know what on earth is going on, but I'm like I say, I've almost got to the stage now where I'm just fully expecting a loss away from home, and anything else would be a nice bonus. I mean, we're going to Leeds next, who are probably the best team in the league and have a particularly better record at Ellen Road. I think they've only lost once or twice at Ellen Road since they came down from the Premier League. So, I know you could say that would be the typical Argyle game to go and win, but I don't even think it is typical Argyle anymore. I just have completely lost all faith and lost all confidence. It's kind of I've got to annoyed at myself. I'm not even letting myself get angry anymore because it's just the norm. I'm just sort of laughing off and, back on the bus and go to sleep and whatever. It's just, I don't know. But what I will say, which is what I said before Cardiff as well, it's going to put a lot of pressure now on the home games because it's all very well keeping on doing this as long as we keep winning our home games. Because if we start dropping points at home and we still don't start picking up points away, we're going to find ourselves in that bottom 3 very, very quickly indeed. And we're already only 1 position off it. If we don't win against Preston, every chance we're going to be in the bottom 3 anyway. But then if we then don't win at Preston and then we also don't win at Leeds, we're almost certainly going to be into the bottom 3 going into the Pompey home game, which is going to put the pressure it would put on that game is absolutely colossal. I'm seeing about playing a different system away from home, be more compact. And I mean, like, yeah, maybe that would help. But equally, I don't think that's going to suddenly, in and of itself, going to turn us from a side who look like they've got no idea what they're doing, which is quite frankly the case at the moment, to being a side who, actually look remotely competent and look like they're just getting the simple stuff right and look like they have urgency. So, yeah, I've rambled on. I've probably rambled on a bit too long, but I don't know what the fix is at this point. Get like if they get the number of a good shrink, get them in, get them to work on this squad, because something is not right at all, and it transcends the manager, to be honest. Not that he's off scot-free, but it does transcend the manager.
I can imagine that if there are people inside the building at Owen Park now, they're thinking, good grief, for God's sake, stop talking about hiring shrinks. They've just taken on a nutritionist, for Christ's sake. They don't need a shrink on top of it. Woody, let's come to the goal. I suppose we should probably touch on it for what it is. Barley Mumba certainly has his issues. He has his flaws as a defender. Overplaying is probably the biggest one, isn't it? And unfortunately, in this instance, when he had 2 people around him he could have given the ball to and just got it off quickly, he's overplayed, and we've conceded from our own free kick, basically.
Yeah. He does get caught in possession a lot at the minute. In fact, well, I'm not sure if it was even kind of spotted on the footage last night, but he literally had both his hands up after he went in. It's like, sorry to everyone on the pitch. Yeah. Everyone loves him because historically he's been very good at going forward, beating people, and either creating goals or scoring them. It's never, like, as you say, defense hasn't really been his sort of like strongest suit. I don't know. I'm again, Mr. Positive. I'm always hesitant to put players down too much. Like, you can see he really cares and he's really, really trying. Again, probably trying too much. Just go back to what you're saying about like possibly different systems as well. If anyone recalls of a certain age, Paul Sturrock always set us up away from home, like basically 4-5-1, lump it up to Mickey Evans, and he always said a point away, a win at home, 2 points, like average, but like through the season, that'll get you up. And I mean, I would not be against at all setting up like that, kind of going forward. Like some teams have done it against us, where they're just like a solid couple of banks of 4, and you just cannot play through them. I don't know how we get to that stage where we become impossible to break down.
Millwall did it perfectly last season against us at Home Park when we were going great guns at the start.
I was there for that, yeah.
Gary Rowley, he flooded the midfield. He had the big lad up front, Fleming, didn't he? And they just did a job on Schumacher that night. And,
I mean, I see it mentioned in the comments as well about George Honeyman as well. Like, he's the sort of player I love. Just like every time the ball came to him, he just didn't look in danger of losing it. He knew which way to turn, just keep hold of it, like control the game, like not get panicked. We just need a couple more players like that who, like, every sort of 50-50 ball, loose ball, they seem to come up with it rather than us. It's just, again, that little urgency, that snap, but also experience. Like, you can't some of that you can't teach. But yeah, is Barley Mumba our best defender? Definitely not. But he's still a threat, and he's a player that when he's on form, he will give teams a lot of headaches. But I'm kind of surprised maybe he didn't start in place of Sissoko further forward. But I guess it's a very similar lineup to the one that beat Blackburn. So I guess he's thinking that could be the right formula for us going forward, like as a settled back line, which obviously you don't want to change too much. But I mean, options, we've got Ogbeta, and that's about it. As cover.
That's it with Saxon being on Lincoln's injury table. So
yeah.
It's pretty grim pickings back there at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm genuinely not panicking yet. The players are definitely capable of getting a result anyway. I mean, like, I think it's very easy to forget this is the Championship. Anyone can beat anyone on their day. It's an absolute nut job of a league. Yeah, this one especially. Yeah, I mean, Sunderland the top, we beat them. So consistency, I think it's probably just is the buzzword. Like, and as you say, like just doing the simple stuff right, which like you could see they were trying to do, like keep the ball, pass it around the back, which is it's not fun to watch. But the idea being obviously you're trying to like pull the team one way and another and try and create a gap. And a few times we tried fizzing a crossfield ball out to Whitaker or someone, and it worked. It just sadly then when it came to him, it didn't quite come off down the end. So you can see the strategy there. But yeah, I would love to see it just become hard to break down away from home. Like absolutely fine with that.
Yeah, I think it goes back when you were describing dear old Luggy's system away from home. I just visualize in my head that famous winner at Swindon when McCormick played it long to Trigger, and running off him was Maureen O'Keefe, and we just basically smashed it home, and Sparksy went absolutely mental in the commentary box, and that's it, isn't it, Sam? And if I remember rightly, we had this exact discussion last year with Schumacher, that we were saying, let's just try and basically take it in 10-minute spells, get through the first 10 minutes 0-0, build into the game in the next 10, and what have you. Is it simply a case now, when I was saying this in work the last couple of days, that, as Woody says, with a perhaps more defense-minded system, and there's nothing wrong with playing a different system at home and away, because giving Barley Mumba some credit, at home in that last month, he was one of the shining lights in those three games. Barley Mumba, a totally different player to the one we've seen in the last two games. Is it a case now where the first objective for the team isn't to go into a game thinking, oh, we're not going to lose this, or we need to do this, we need to do that? The first objective, get into half-time 0-0. Just that's what we need to do. Just break the game down a little bit into quarters, into segments, and just manage it that way.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, we kind of were saying that about Schumacher's team, but we couldn't win away this time last year and further on. But I don't think we knew how good we had it, because at least then we were getting the odd draw and we were playing pretty well, even if we weren't quite getting the win done. We had games like West Brom where we drew 0-0, played pretty well. We had games like Watford.
But Sam, in all fairness, let's add some context. In the last international break, we played well in the two away games there. We just came up against two teams who have more quality than us, and
we played well at West Brom. I think Burnley was it was okay. It was certainly better.
But they had better quality, Sam, didn't they? That's what it came down to. They had better quality. They were able to get into positions that we were.
They had better quality, but I wouldn't say we played well. I think they were kind of there for the taking. I think they had an off day and we didn't really exploit it. Is my honest truth on that. I mean, look, I think under Schumacher, at least we had, West Brom was more like a Schumacher away day, but we had a lot of games where we just played well and didn't quite find a way to get the result, or, at least we got a draw. Whereas with this one, I think, West Brom I'll give you, but pretty much every other game we've been comfortably the better team. QPR, you can excuse it on the basis it was a hard battling performance with 10 men for most of the game and then 9 men for the last few minutes of the game. But obviously, all the others, Sheffield Wednesday battered, Cardiff battered, Burnley we never got going, Millwall we never really got going. It was only really QPR battling performance in the context, but we were still well comfortably the weaker team in terms of chances created. It was only West Brom where we went and gave them a real run for their money in terms of actually looking like we might score a goal, even though we didn't score a goal. At least we looked like we might do. Even if you look at Watford in the League Cup game, very uninspiring performance. First 20, again, seems to be a bit of a similar story. First 20, 25 were okay. But then after that, we just completely dropped off again. In the second half, we were shocking it, which is, again, another game that backs up the narrative we're starting to develop here of being a bit fragile, just going behind, heads dropping. So, I don't know what's going to happen. But, I mean, maybe, put it this way, I certainly wouldn't be averse to seeing us go with a more defensive setup. Quite frankly, I think it can't really get much worse results at this point. You can't really get much worse than 8 losses out of 9, can you, with one draw, Although actually, if you look at that in the last season, I suppose under Dewsnip, that was quite a defensive setup anyway, and we still lost 3-0 at Stoke and 1-0 at Millwall, so maybe we are just cursed. But I mean, what I'd be interested in, and again, this is sort of throwing it back to you two guys as well, what would the more defensive setup look like? Because we're 4-3-3 already, which can in theory already be a 4-3-3 in attack, but a 4-5-1 in defence, because Whitaker and whoever's on the left side, Sissoko, whoever it may be, but Bundu in this instance can drop back in. So we're already in that situation where it's a 4-3-3 that can turn into a 4-5-1. So how do we make that more defensive? The only thing I can think of would be we go a 3 at the back with wing backs, which then Edwards and Mumba can effectively drop into a back 5, which would mitigate Mumba's weaknesses. So do you want to maybe play a back 3? But of course, the trouble then is the one who'd be ideal for that would be Galloway, and he's now out until after the next international break. So what do? Do you maybe put Paulson in a back 3? Do you maybe put Plegafuelo in a back 3? And then have Edwards and Mumba as the wing backs? I mean, would that be workable? Interested in what you guys think.
I'd
quite like to see a back. I'd quite like to see a back 5 personally. Forget the wing backs, just back 5. You are right in what you're saying that ideally you would probably have Galloway on the left hand side of that because he would be able to drop in his cover. At least if you played that back 5 line with Mumba on the left, he'd have Gibson essentially holding his hand for him and shepherding him through the game. You know, if Barley does commit, he's going to have Gibson then / either Such or Paulson as 2 covering on that side. Look, they might not be the most popular people at the moment. I'd also advocate to see Forshaw and Houghton in the midfield in away games as well, because Woody's talking about steeliness and experience and things. Houghton may not have all the experience in the Championship, but Forshaw has a lot of experience in the Championship. And what we don't have is and Dean makes the comment there about we look scared to put a tackle in. What we don't have, and Millwall did it very effectively last night, is people making tackles in our half. So as we're ready to go on the break, they've got somebody who's nibbling away at the ankles or tugging away at the shirt that's just breaking the play up. Randall and JB aren't going to do that. They're just not going to do that. They're ball playing midfielders. And what you need is, I think we need to get people like Forshaw and Houghton. And I know Sam turned his nose up at it. But you just need those sorts of players in there, I think, away from home. Randall and JB at home, great. Yeah, play them at home. But
I'll go with Houghton. I think Forshaw, and I hope I'm wrong, I think his legs are just fully done. I just don't think he's up to playing at this level, apart from maybe 20 minutes at the end. And that's a maybe. I would go with maybe Randall and JB at home, Randall and Houghton away. But I don't think Forshaw's a starter in pretty much any game. I hope I'm wrong.
Forshaw's a funny one. The first time I saw him play, he did that sort of honeymoon thing I was talking about where I didn't feel like he was going to lose the ball. So I'm not sure if he's gone off the ball a little bit or what, but like he's on paper the exact sort of thing we need, like experienced head, prem experience, and a ball player, but can also tackle. I think Houghton gets a very unfair rep sometimes. I mean, yeah, he's not playing glamorous sort of through balls, but he keeps us ticking over. He rarely loses the ball, and he puts in a tackle. Sometimes you need someone just doing that grunt work. Like it's obviously this is like real football, not like FIFA. So you don't need like absolute worldy goal scorers all over the pitch. You need people who actually will put in the hard yards and just actually break things up, and also like off the ball, just like be in the way, like close down avenues. I think, yeah, be a nuisance. Just tighten things up. But if it was a formational change, I think again people get a bit carried away with how important that is. I think it's down to application. There was like one point last night, Bundu lost the ball, and I kind of watched him because he was like on my side of the pitch where I was sat, and just sort of just jogged back when they were breaking. And then like, surely the basics is the second you lose the ball or we're going backwards, you tear ass back towards the goal. That should be like an absolute non-negotiable. So I think it's more down to just application and drive than formation or anything like that. I mean, up top, I liked Andre Gray when he came on. You could see he was like strong and like a real handful. I also had that sort of drive, like trying to fire a ball in, trying to get the players going, like being confrontational, getting in people's faces, which we didn't really have that. So if he gives us that sort of nastier edge, I wouldn't mind him being up top. We just need someone that can hold the ball up if we're going to play that Mickey Evans sort of role. Obviously, he's like a generational sort of talent for us, like in that ability, and gave us that out ball all the time. But yeah, I wouldn't be against kind of the current formation. Maybe just be more compact, like force them out wide if we're going to do that. But I mean, yeah, I would give Gray a go for sure.
I wonder what Barry Hales is doing these days, talking about people who can hold the ball up.
I absolutely love Barry Hales.
We all love Barry Hales. I think with Gray, he didn't really look very sharp, but
no,
you could see he had the right ideas. You could see he had that game awareness of when a defender was going for a ball that he was straight to get to, but was a bit high, he would get right up in the defender's face to kind of let them know that even if the defender was going to win the ball, he was going to make it a bit harder for them. He pressed in the right areas. So I think he's got that good game awareness, and he wasn't great because he was still very much clearly unfit. You could tell he'd not played much football. But I think if he can get match fit, he could be a handy player to have based on.
I was going to say it was summed up perfectly by that little through ball that Randall tried to play that he just overhit it, and Gray was on that run. He was on it, and if it had been weighted perfectly, he was ready to pull the trigger. But hey, look, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? We didn't get that chance. What we did do second half was Wayne Rooney did the one thing that as children you weren't supposed to do when you had the wooden box and you had the circle and you tried to stick the circle through the square hole and the square through the triangle hole. He threw everybody on, bar Kevin Nanscoville basically up front yesterday. And it was all in search of what unfortunately was an unlikely equaliser. We didn't really fashion a chance other than that wonderful throwback to football of the late 90s, early 2000s. We got a goalmouth scramble, and young Freddie, bless him, was just a little bit off balance, wasn't he?
Well, it wouldn't. I mean, I was literally right next to it, pretty much in the stand, like down the front. It just wouldn't drop. There's a couple of times you're like, it just wouldn't. It wouldn't set up for us. It's just one of those things. Also, I mean, again, Mr. Glass half full. Millwall went great, and obviously Bally slip didn't help. And there was the one thing where we messed up, and then had that ridiculous goal line clearance. I think it was Gibson. Then it was it Edwards off the line? I couldn't see from where I was sat, but that got. But that aside, they didn't really cut us apart. Like, we had a lot of the ball. They were happy to sit back. And also, you mentioned Millwall at home, where they did us 2-0. That was like, to me, that was a lesson we should have learned then. It was like, welcome to the Championship of like just gamesmanship, running the game, hit on the break twice, bang, goal, and sit back. Like, we don't ever try and do that. And also, like, they were time wasting from last night. Sorry, they were time wasting from like within 10 minutes, and just like slowing the game down. Anytime we sort of had our tails up, someone goes down injured. This, that, and the other. There's cramp. There's this. There's that. I think just a bit of street smarts, and dark arts, I think wouldn't go amiss at all. Like, somewhere in the team.
And one thing we did see was that the keeper was incredibly flappy when the ball actually did eventually get lobbed into his box. He dropped one in the first half that he made a Horlicks of, and the one at the end that led to that goalmouth scramble is frankly alarming. If you're a Millwall fan, that he's somehow managed to drop that. Sam, do you want to touch on any individual? I suppose let's try and spin this now. Let's give some praise where we can in yesterday's effort, because as Woody says, and Wayne Rooney was right in what he said after the game, there wasn't a huge amount in that yesterday. It was two poor sides that were banging heads against one another, and unfortunately we just banged our head a little bit harder against theirs and fell to the floor. But there were little glimpses at various points. I mean, we kept the ball well in the first half in particular. I think the only problem I have is that whilst we kept the ball well at times, second half we became incredibly wasteful with it. Of the 460 odd passes we completed, 313 or 315 or something were in our own half. But come on, let's pick out some individuals. Sam, you can go first.
Yeah, despite I think the fact he didn't track back very well for the first goal, I do think Adam Randall had a very good game after that and was probably our man of the match. I would say. I think he really got stuck in well. You could tell so many times he had the ball and JB and Wright ahead of him just weren't making the runs. And you could tell he sort of had the ball and couldn't really do anything with it, and he was getting frustrated himself at having to go back in that scenario. So I do think Randall did well apart from the goal. I think Lewis Gibson again did well apart from the goals. I think certainly that clearance was incredible, and that would have been 2-0, and that really would have put paid to any hope we might have had. By and large, I think the centre-backs, certainly Gibson, have stopped us conceding even more goals this season than what we already have. Some good last-ditch work, some good headers. So, praise for Randall, praise for Gibson. I think a bit of praise for Andre Gray. As I mentioned there, that's about it, really. Grimshaw, I guess, he for that goal line clearance instance, he came out and made himself big. And if he hadn't have narrowed the angle so well, maybe he would have just fired it earlier. And I think with Grimshaw, to be fair, he did some good quick distribution where he got the ball and threw it out well. So again, when I said Grimshaw had a bit of a nightmare in the Cardiff game, could have done better for a lot of the goals. I think he certainly had a decent game last night. So yeah, Grimshaw, Randall, Gibson, and Andre Gray. And I think that's, Saka worked hard, ran well. So I guess you could maybe say that he at least gave the defenders a bit more to think about. He injected a bit of energy, but not a whole lot of end product. I really think he needs a loan in Saka. I think if you, and I know that it's the transfer window shut in league pyramid, but realistically, I'm not, League One sides probably aren't going to take him anyway at this stage of development. League Two sides might do, but if you could get him out to a National League side now, not like a Torquay or a Truro, but a conference side, because the conference is more or less a fully pro league now. He could get regular games, hopefully, could hopefully get a few goals and develop a skill set. And I think at the minute, you can see he's got all the right ideas, but you can just tell he hasn't got that experience in the pro game. He's a little bit scruffy on the ball. He's a little bit flustered in his decision making, and he didn't quite have that composure in front of goal. And he is a talented young lad. He is still, despite the fact he's been in and around the first team for Donkey, he is still only 18, amazingly. So I think like a loan to like a decent National League side, like a Barnet or a Hartlepool.
Yeovil.
Well, Yeovil, yeah, Yeovil are local. But,
I've got a certain podcast co-host who would definitely love him at Southend. I can say that.
Yeah, Southend, they're decent level conference sides, and someone like that, someone like a Southend, a Yeovil, a Barnet, like a decent conference side, I think he could really add to, and I think it'd be beneficial for him.
Yeah.
Woody, has Sam left you anybody?
Yeah, he has. It's fine. So
he hasn't mentioned, so you to talk about.
Just to paint.
Sorry, I can do that at times, buddy.
It's fine, mate. You're fine. Just to paint a bit of extra colour with it. So I actually went last night with my mate from Brighton, Jamie, who's a Millwall fan. So we actually shared a ride home afterwards. That was fun. His little lad actually went to his first game as well, so he was buzzing, bless him. But so yeah, interestingly, when you hear the sort of like opposition point of view, basically him and everyone around him, they all picked out Edwards as their sort of like Argyle man of the match. They felt like he was just kind of making things happen. Again, I don't think I've ever seen him give the ball away, hardly ever. I always think about, with players, do I feel safe? And if they're on the ball, like Grimshaw, I feel safe. Balls at his feet, I feel good. Edwards on the ball, I feel safe. Randall and et al, I feel safe. So I would echo you with Randall for sure, Grimshaw, Edwards. Andre Gray, I think, showed glimpses of what could come. Hopefully we get him match fit before his deal's up in January, and then someone poaches him. Hopefully we get at least a little bit of prime Andre Gray before he leaves. And then Gibson as well. I think he could be one of the best signings we've had like in a decade. I think the quality. Yeah, here you go. Someone agrees.
I said, Woody, just for context, I said in the fourth game of last season on this podcast that Lewis Gibbs, after 4 games, that Lewis Gibson was the best centre-back I've ever seen play for Plymouth Argyle. And it's only now that my bandwagon is getting full up of people joining the party.
Ooh.
I'm still on the Marcel Sipe train, but I can see your point for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
Marcel Sipe.
Ball players, yeah. I mean, if you want absolute units, I think Christian Seymour might want a word as well, but still, I think Gibson's been an unreal signing, and also Shook as well. I think never heard of him, but again, I think that's sort of testament to the club's scouting and recruitment, finding these players you absolutely never heard of, and then all of a sudden he's now playing for Hungary out of nowhere. So I mean I'm unfortunate that I get to speak to Simon Hallett occasionally, and he's basically talking about how like all the money for the club is going into like recruitment and scouting, and like that is the model that we're going to follow. Because if we try and compete with like your Burnleys and your Leeds in the transfer market money wise, we're just going to get killed. So we need to go and find value, polish up some rough diamonds, move them on, go again, which I'm fine with. I think we will. Also, we need to kind of have a bit of context. So last season, finishing 21st. That was a successful. It was stressful, but it was a successful season. This season, if we finish 20th, 19th, that is still successful. We're grinding upwards, and the squad is gradually evolving. We're bringing in new players. It's going to grind up slowly, and I'm absolutely fine with that. I think people get a bit carried away. I had some blokes last night screaming at each other that we should go and get Harry Redknapp in to manage us, which is just absolutely deluded on many levels. But
dear.
I think just like an appreciation of like where we are. Like, I think we're fine. I really do. It's not alarm bells yet. We're gonna we're such a young team. We are gonna have a beast of a game occasionally, but also then when it all clicks, we are then capable of turning over top of the league. So
exactly.
I think Woody said earlier he's not yet calling Mayday, and I would probably agree with that. But I did a quick bit of research on Google because I couldn't quite remember the word for it. And apparently the signal one down for Mayday is pan. Apparently, so there's the fact of the day. And I'm not quite calling Mayday, but I think I am calling pan ahead of the Preston game. And if we don't beat Preston or Leeds, then it might be approaching a Mayday call ahead of Pompey. But I would agree, not quite there yet.
Yeah, but also like again, everyone's very, very trigger happy. Like who would you bring in?
Well, there is one manager who's got a good record here in a house down in Plymouth who's left the job quite recently, but maybe that's opening a can of worms we didn't intend.
I was going to say let's not get ourselves walking down that alley just yet.
No. We are. I personally, I think we're miles off that.
I agree. We're way off that. I agree. Well, my serious view, Woody, I've been being a bit tongue in cheek there, provocative for the comments. But
unlike you, Sam.
No, I know. I agree. We are a very long way off that. Certainly, I think Simon Hannett is not, rightly or wrongly, is not a trigger-happy chairman at all. Both of his sackings he's made has taken quite some persuasion. It's taken things to get very bad in the case of Derek Adams and Foster before he has pulled the trigger. So I don't think he's a trigger-happy guy at all. So I think we are certainly some way off it getting even into that ballpark, I would agree. But in terms of worrying about survival, I think, whilst I'm not quite calling Mayday, I perhaps am calling pan, because, like I say, when we just cannot get any kind of result away, it does put so much pressure on the home games. And if we then have a dodgy run at home, even if we have a game where we play well, dominate the game, but get a frustrating kind of 1-1 draw or whatever, that then really puts us in a situation of where are the points coming from, and that's what my concern is. Are we going to know that Neil Dewsnip said in the press recently we're targeting 58 points, and they've got to come from somewhere. And if they're not coming away, then that means we've got to get a lot of home wins, right? And like I say, if we can keep on winning at home, I'll stop complaining. But if the wins stop coming at home, that's when the worry really will set in.
I still think we just need a little slice of luck. And I say, if that ball drops to Azaka a bit kinder, we're not having this conversation right now.
Exactly. And let's go back to it. If Sam Allison had backed the courage of his convictions and stuck with his original decision after 20 seconds yesterday, then we'd have a glorious chance to essentially let the Millwall crowd do our job for us. Which could have happened. But
to be fair, Joe, just to follow up on that, sorry to cut in again. I think if we ever did get an early lead away, like we could have done with Obafemi scoring, and like we could have done if the penalty was given at Millwall, it'd be interesting to see how the mentality would shift, because our whole theory is we go 1-0 down, it goes belly up, the mentality drops. If we got an early lead, it would be interesting to see if conversely the mentality becomes good and we keep going forward and maybe even get a second goal. And I think that would be a good case study to see. But of course, we have got to get that bit of luck in the first place. Maybe it'll come at Ellen Road and we'll win it. And Woody said we not won at Millwall since the 60s. We've won at Leeds more recently than that in 1973. Not a lot more recently. But it would be a good time to get our first win at Leeds United, wouldn't it?
Every cloud has a silver lining. Going back to the Osaka loan suggestion, another place that Aaron suggests is Ross Jenkins's Boreham Wood, who are obviously in the National League, I think. So let's move it on then, because I think one thing we do have to say is it was just, Cardiff was a bad day. That was just one of those nights where nothing was going to happen, was it? Nothing was going to go well. It was one of those turgid games. Let's talk about Saturday, because if there's one thing we can't complain about at the moment, it's the home form. Superb in the last 3 home games. Everybody will agree with that. We really do have home comforts, and We're coming up against a Preston team that probably doesn't have the edge it had at the start of the season. It certainly doesn't have the edge it had last season. There's almost definitely no bad blood between the two clubs now that Ryan Lowe's back working for Sky. But would you have rather played them 4 weeks ago than playing them this week with the way that Heckingbottom appears to now be getting his ideas across?
I think we can overthink it drastically, and again, we're comfortable at home. People hate coming to us. They really hate coming to us for once, and we are going to have to compete against, on paper, a lot of bigger and more experienced teams than us. But we can definitely punch above our weight. I'm actually down for the game on Saturday as well. So hopefully get to see 3 points for a change. But yeah, I mean, I back us like I rate us as a team, and if again chatting to the Millwall lot last night, they're like, well, yeah, you lot have got some players that are like on paper are threats. Obviously, Whittaker when he clicks is a threat. Sissoko when he's not suspended is a threat. Maybe we don't have the sort of strength and depth as other teams do, but it'll be a sellout again. The crowd will be hopefully behind everyone, and yeah, I think we'll be fine. Like, correct me on it if you want, but I'm really not that I'm not that worried.
The annoying thing, my create a marker button, which I pushed to give Aaron something to clip up for TikTok and things, isn't working tonight, which is really frustrating because I could have Sam on TikTok and Instagram Reels for days with some of the things he's come out with tonight. Sam, it is taking on a little bit extra significance now, but Rooney just has to essentially turn around and say, carry on where you left off here 3 weeks ago, doesn't he? The team talk writes itself. You have a chance to go out in front of 16,000, and the best way to apologise to them for the 2 crap shows we've witnessed this week is to put Preston to the sword, surely.
Absolutely. I think it is a bit of a tough time to be playing Preston. They've been on very good form under Paul Heckingbottom, who was at one point the favourite for the job at Argyle this summer. So I don't know if he'll maybe have a point to prove to the board of directors, possibly. But they are on good form. They've won a few lately. That they're really coming into it. So it will be tough in that regard because they're very high on confidence. But you know what? For all the criticism that I've given to the team on the last 2 podcasts, and for all the criticism that I feel they have rightly earned, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I do not ever like to bet against us at home park. We are a different beast at home park with the crowd roaring us on, with the opposition. I don't know what it is. There's something about it. I think whether it's the long travel, because look, we're talking about how our long travel is tough to prep. That obviously doesn't work the other way around. For every other team that comes there, bar a handful, it will be their longest trip of the season for the majority of them, or certainly up there with one of the longest ones. So whether it's the mixture of it being a tough, daunting game for other teams, whether it's the loud home park crowd, maybe it's the Janus song, who knows? Something about home games, makes it very tough for opposition teams and gives us that little bit of a extra 5% psychological energy that we don't have away from home. So I would not bet against us, even against a team on good form, at which Preston most definitely are. We've got every chance of turning it around. Sissoko will still be a miss. There's no 2 ways about that. I don't know quite who I would put out left. I would probably maybe replicate what we had for the Luton game of Obafemi out left with either Hardy or Andre Gray, central striker, one of the 2. Andre Gray, if he's fit enough to start, maybe Hardy if he's not fit enough to start. I for all that I am very worried about the away form, I think we've got it in us to get a win.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly want to be going home happier at full time on Saturday. And the one thing that will really help, as I think, Woody, it was you who alluded to it earlier, that in home games lately, when something's gone against us, or it might be you, Sam, where we've used it as a pick me up, if you like the Blackburn disallowed goal, and we saw it so many times last season, didn't we? When I think I highlighted during the Sunderland pod when they were given their penalty, etc., that When Rotherham hospitalised our 2 strikers last year, Home Park was, I don't think I've ever heard noise like it in that second half against Rotherham.
The
The
other
best
thing
thing we
was
have
the helicopter taking off later that evening on the way to Stoke.
Well, yeah. The best thing we have for that is Andy Davies is going to be refereeing this game, so there's bound to be something that's going to get the Home Park crowd going. Woody, Sam mentioned there about he's not sure who would start in Sissoko's place. Are you taking on what you said earlier? Would you sort of advocate for maybe Mumba playing up there and perhaps bring Ogbeta in at left back for this one, or am I reading that wrong?
Obviously, having not seen them in training, I couldn't comment fully, but I think just like for actual players' confidence as well. Like, obviously saying earlier, like they are quite a young squad. Just give Mumba license just to get forward, and if he does make a mistake, then hopefully won't get punished with a goal. Obviously, Ogbeta's got pedigree and was brought in for a reason. Hasn't quite had a run yet. Maybe this could be his opportunity. But I mean, I know talking to some of the players and like sat next to some of their wives at QPR as well. Like the mood, the dressing room's good. Like Rooney's treating them like grown-ups, and the players are happy. Well, as far as like day-to-day stuff goes. So I think just a bit of confidence and just something dropping for us. Just that little bit of luck just kicks it on. Because like let's think like 2 weeks ago, but pre-international break, we just won 3 home games on the spin, and all of a sudden we're like world class and thinking, could we have a little tilt at the playoffs? And all of a sudden now 2 weeks later, we're like guaranteed relegation fodder and everything's on fire. So
and let's be fair. These 2 games we have had moments at 0-0. I'm talking purely about the penalty that was awarded last night and the Obafemi chance on Saturday. That there are 2 clear moments that, and we could be having totally different conversations on this podcast, couldn't we? Because you don't know what was going to happen after that.
And also, let's not forget Cardiff have now gone and won 3 and drawn 1 since they changed manager.
Yeah.
So we just happened to catch a team who are finally woken up and playing to their potential. So I mean, maybe that was just unlucky as well. Yeah, I would think give Mumba, just show him a bit of love, because when he's on song and he's feeling good, again it's a confidence thing. It's like when they try the back heels, they try the little flick to get everyone like off their seats. When it comes off, they feel amazing and they'll try it again. If you get the sort of typical sort of Home Park groan, if something goes wrong too easily, then it's like then everyone's on their backs quite quickly. Just, I think, show them some love was the answer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because I think we are probably the biggest confidence team, certainly in the Championship, if not actually in the Football League. You see it when we score at home, the tails are up, and it looks fantastic at times. But yesterday, when the proverbial was hitting the fan, we were just running into trouble, and as you say, those little flicks weren't coming off. And I mean, everyone's talking about Whittaker's lob into the midfield that went straight to the Millwall players and things. Let's rattle through some questions then before we go to some score predictions, because we have had some questions come in. We are nearly at the hour mark, so we've done quite well to keep the timekeeping tonight. I think Aaron's not here, so things haven't waffled on. Yeah. Stevie Vaughan, it's not a question. You did say that we do have the lowest budget where we're positioned, and we're expected to finish in the bottom 89-90% of the Championship. We can't compete. And I think that's what you were saying earlier, Woody, weren't you, with your comments, your questions with Simon Hallett and things. It's about being smarter and just utilising what we have as best we can. And you'd like to think with Cornell Such, that's an obvious example of where it's working. Al Hadj and Sissoko are having glimmers of it working, and it you can see why they've been brought into the club. But Such is the epitome at the moment of why it works.
And he really is.
If we can use that a little bit more in January, hopefully Michael Baidoo may still be at the top of our list. Scored again in the Europa League last night. Hopefully that we can show that we can recruit well.
Yeah, I mean, keep investing in the club and building it slowly. And I realize this is sacrilege, and I'm probably going to get chinned in the stands for saying this. I'd rather keep operating as we are, even if it means we go down, because everyone's got very short memories, and the club almost didn't exist at all 12 years ago because of overspending and overstretching. So I think we need to be a bit patient with it. Things aren't always going to go our way. And for every Such we find, we're going to find the odd dud as well. But just throwing money at it endlessly, like without, I mean, I know there's been talk of investors coming in. It hasn't quite materialized yet. But even when they do, we can't get into that same situation we did under the New World, as was where Simon Steve McLean on mega money to basically just shank it into Row Z.
Well,
Yes.
Mr. Hallett made a very
It was
interesting comment on a podcast this week, didn't he? Joe, well, okay, I'm preempting it.
Let me tee you up, Sam, before you knock it out of the park.
Go on, then.
Andy Lodge on Facebook asks, "Is it true he's heard about some investment coming in?" I'm going to put you on the spot, Sam. Have you heard this podcast?
I've not heard it. I've read the quote.
fuck.
I've not actually listened to it, but
basically, Simon Hallett is talking about, how our resources are and things like that, and he did hint that he hopes that news of investment is on the horizon. He did also elaborate the pretty obvious point that clubs around Heathrow that have better links, are going to obviously be at the top of the tree. But when you've got Rihanna and a rapper investing in Tranmere, I mean, come on, we're Britain's Ocean City.
Yeah,
I would say we need, and again, like trust in Simon in terms of his judge of character. All of us, as much as we think we know best, he's got decades of ballroom experience in different industries, different companies. We need the right people on board. We cannot have a repeat of that Japanese mob who almost torpedoed us. It needs to be the right money. Sorry, the right people with the money behind them. We shouldn't just see dollar signs and jump at the first thing we see, because the club is so well run. You could very easily poison the well by accident by bringing in one bad egg.
Like evidently, Sam, seemingly what a part of Argyle Green may well have been, because obviously they were out the door pretty quickly, and the loyal members have stuck around.
I think very clearly Argyle Green was strategic differences, right? They wanted to invest. Obviously, there's always going to be a bit of a waiting where a certain amount of money gets invested into brickfields and long-term infrastructure, and a certain amount of money gets invested into the team. And I think Argyle Green wanted it to be more weighted towards immediate transfers, and Simon Hallett and the existing board wanted it to be more weighted in terms of long-term infrastructure. And you know what? For all the criticism you can make, I don't disagree with Simon Hallett on that, because yes, it's the old saying, teach a man, get a man a fish and he'll be fed for a day. Teach a man the fish and he'll be fed for life. Put 10 million into a squad. Yes, we can have a really great season and maybe get outside the playoffs, or put 10 million into brickfields and we will produce top quality players for maybe decades on end. So I don't disagree with Simon Hallett on that. I actually think he's probably correct. And obviously that's why Argyle Green didn't really increase their investment in the club. That being said, I do think there needs to be maybe a little bit more addressing of the balance towards maybe putting some of it into the team, because obviously that the hospitality, that side of it, people coming in, the crowd staying aside and saying, that's all going to be pivotal as well. Getting the Category B academy, which, if you read between the lines, the Argyle analyst on Twitter, friend of the pod, had put a thread out about how a lot of what's going on indicates that we are going to quite shortly be applying for Category B academy. That's not any insider knowledge from the club. That's just people putting two and two together, that all of the changes we're making seem to fulfill the qualification criteria for Category B academy. And if we have Category B academy, we can enter our under-21s team into the Premier League 2, or into an under-21s league of equivalent, strength or whatever. So clearly there is that level of investment. Clearly, whichever investments coming in have to be signed up and have to be on board with the programme on brickfields in a way that Argyle Green perhaps would not. I'm absolutely fine with that. But equally, if we stay in the Championship, we keep the TV deal going for another few years. We keep protecting the value of our assets. We keep attracting. Because money brings more money, right? It's all, investing in brickfields is good, but if we have that platform of being in the Championship to go from, it's more likely we can achieve the 5-year plan. So absolutely, I agree with Woody that we don't want to gamble and go back, where we were in 2011. But equally, at the same time, we don't want to go so far totally and on the long term that we forget about the short term as well. Because League One, as we know, is a tough league to get out of. I know we did it quite quickly, but that was a bit of a once in a lifetime season, wasn't it? Getting 101 points on a mid-table budget. So we don't want to get stuck in League One. If we do, is that certain? No, it's not. It's not going to ruin the club being in League One, but it's going to make it a lot harder to meet the 5-year plan of being a team contending for the playoffs, and with a team with a long-term goal of eventually reaching the promised land of the Premier League. So I mostly agree with the Hallett strategy, but I do also think let's not go so totally in on the long term that we forget to look after the here and now as well.
Something
I would
easy to bear in mind, sorry to
argue.
cut across you, is that so been very fortunate over the years. Had Maxime Blanchard come to a few Bastille shows. He's an absolute top boy, by the way. And obviously after a few beers, been sort of grilling him on the ins and outs. And he was telling me that basically Argyle have to pay about a third more on wages than other clubs do to attract them down to the southwest. That's just a matter of fact. Obviously, if you're trying to sell, like, especially like an experienced player, like I was saying, like a Honeyman or whoever, they're going to have kids already in school, like in, say, the Birmingham area or London area. It's like, well, if the commute is, say, just an hour down the road, they're going to choose that over like being 4 hours away. Because I believe that there's only 2 or 3 players actually have their families moved down to Plymouth. The rest have got all their families still up north or in and around the Midlands. So we need to just be realistic in terms of the players we could attract, not just because of the club, but like geography. It can be our friend in terms of making it a hard place to come, but then it's also a really hard place to recruit. And again, putting money into brickfields. I know a sort of gripe with the players for a while has been the sort of lack of gym, which they're now addressing. So they're building this up. So the actual infrastructure and the club because everyone focuses obviously on Saturday and Tuesday, like that's all we see of Argyle, but we aren't seeing the day-to-day, the training, like players actually living their lives. So if putting money into making the club attractive for them 365 rather than just on a match day, I think it's quite savvy.
I would also argue the counterpoint is that we've just come off a summer transfer window that by Plymouth Argyle historical standards has been incredibly expensive. You know, if you go by the waivers of what we've spent, you know, 800 grand on El Hadj and 500,000 on Such and something similar for Grimshaw, and the costings about getting Sissoko and Tajani into the club as well, and JB certainly won't be a cheap transaction. So by Argyle standards, I think that's been quite a costly summer. Let's get on to the bit that everybody stuck around for, and that's our predictions for Saturday then. Because, you know, we shouldn't play it down. It's another big game at home park, full house. Hopefully the weather will be nice. We don't want the lights to be on too early, do we? It's the dark nights are looming on the horizon.
I hate to break it to you, but every time we come to Plymouth with my missus, it rains and she's coming down. So it's going to be sheeting it down, I'm afraid.
Okay, I won't forget my coat when I'm leaving for home park on Saturday. Woody, you're unmuted. What's the score going to be at full time on Saturday afternoon?
I'm going to say we're going to be playing our usual brand of football at home, which is going to be defending for idiots. We're going to win 4-3 sort of mentality, but I think we're going to win 3-1.
3-1. Sam, this is a battle of the two joint lowest scorers in the division. It's set up to be a cracker, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think we'll win 2-1. I think that Jekyll and Hyde will continue, and after 2 games of Mr. Hyde, we'll have a return of Dr. Jekyll, whichever way around it is. I'm still not sure if I've got that right, but I think we'll see the good Argyle back, and I certainly hope so, because like I say, if not, there's going to be some miserable faces on this podcast Sunday night. But no, for now, I'll stick with positivity, and I'll go 2-1 victory.
Well, I'm going to go for glory here, and I'm going to say that not only are we going to get back to winning ways and make it 4 in a row at home, we're also going to get our first clean sheet of the season in the league on Saturday. I think that we're going to win this 2-0. I'm not necessarily going to say it's going to be a comfortable 2-0. I can see us getting one early in the first half and home park being its usual bouncy, raucous self. The next 70 minutes will then be incredibly tough viewing because Preston will come at us and we will be hanging on for dear life. And then at the end, on the break, just like we were so famous for over the past sort of 6-7 years, being that good counter-attacking team that we are, I think we will extend our winning run at home and we will all be absolutely delighted. Unless there's any other business, which I can't think of. We've got a couple of score predictions in. Dean says he would like to say 3-0, but 2-0 Argyle. Steve Vaughan says 4-0.
Go on, Stevie.
I think we'd all enjoy we'd all enjoy a 4-0 afternoon. But unless, Sam, do you have any AOB? Woody, do you have any AOB for us? Any?
No, just an absolute shameless plug for my podcast, Away Days with Woody and
Carry
Piers.
on. Feel free.
Everyone wants to please jump on Spotify or iTunes or your favorite podcast provider. Give us a search. We've got some really good guests out already and some more coming. So that is Away Days with Woody and Piers. And on socials, Woody Piers Away.
There you go. And Sam, we can't plug the FCAs anymore, can we? Because voting's closed.
No,
So.
voting is closed, but yeah, we are going to be going there on the night of the 21st at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I'm yet to get my suit, but it's on the agenda at some point next month. So yeah, it'd be very, very good evening at the Football Content Awards coming up, I'm sure.
If you're going to get a suit made up, can you go a la Josh Widdicombe, like 96 Spice Boys? Like white suit, green tie.
I couldn't pull that off the way he can. Come on, I'm not a white suit kind of guy.
Just don't drink red wine or eat curry, because then that suit will be a write off in no time.
I mean, from maybe Joe hasn't seen an away games as much as Aaron has, but if Aaron was here, he'd be telling me that me in a white suit with my propensity to spill my drink on away games would be a terrible combination. So absolutely not happening. As much as I love the sport.
We've all seen the pictures, and if you haven't, Woody, we'll make sure we send you a couple of them.
Yes, please.
But I think I won't be there that late, owing to the fact that it's my birthday. But I think it'll be at least about midnight by the time that Sam, John, and Aaron are being kicked out of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and wheeled into any establishment that's still open in North London. But yeah, no, just a little mention, because I don't know whether the lads did at the weekend. If you did vote for us, huge thank you. And we will hope that on our away travels on this podcast, we can do just a little bit better than Argyle have been doing at the moment, and we can bring something back to Devon. So that is it. An hour and 11 minutes. I think that's the most prompt we've ever been on the podcast, particularly after a defeat. Sam, pleasure as always. I'm sure we'll see you again on Sunday night. Woody, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, boys. Appreciate it.
Good work with the away day podcast, and we look forward, I'm sure several people who are in the comments and watching tonight will see you at some point in and around Home Park on Saturday. Enjoy the atmosphere. Let's hope it comes
positivity
off,
that's all I'm going to say. Be positive, get behind the boys, come on.
And have a word with your mate about that Osaka loan, because I reckon that could be a good thing for him.
Fair enough. All right, I'll have a word.
I'm not sure Nance will be too happy with us sorting out his loan manager's role, but we'll ease the burden for him. It was his birthday this week, bless him. But that's it. Thank you very much for joining us. You can all go back now and catch the end of the Europa League and Conference League. And if you have been with us, BBC Question Time is back at 10 o'clock live in Plymouth. I'm sure it will have been not quite as riveting as the last hour. From all of us at Green and White, we will see you on Sunday night.